flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausa, on Tuesday, September 27th at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. And I would like to request everyone, please put your cell phones and other electronic devices on silent or vibrate, not as to not be an interruption to the meeting, and I thank you for your compliance. And we will move on to roll call and sign in, and I would have everyone please sign in. Supervisor Marshall, you're not. I'd ask IT to assist Supervisor Marshall's iPad. She's not connecting. And as we will proceed with the meeting, because we have some educational presentations before we get to anything that's voting. And so we are through with roll call, and I'd like to welcome all of the visitors that we have with us this evening, including the viewing audience. And we will move on to educational presentations. And we have department head reports and roles and responsibilities. And first up, we have conservation planning and zoning, and we have the department director, Lori Miskimmins. Lori, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair Gibbs and County Board Supervisors, for having me here this evening to speak about conservation planning and zoning. My name is Lori Miskimmins. I have been the Conservation Planning and Zoning, or the CPZ, Director for the last 1.5 years. And when you learn about everything we do here tonight, I think you'll understand that I am still learning much of what we do at CPZ. I find myself saying, wait, we do that service here too? So it's still very much learning in progress, but it's a lot of fun. So your slide deck, or the slide deck and your packet, do tell you our mission, which is to protect our community's land and environment, because we do believe the economic strength and vitality of our community is dependent on the quality of our resources. And we do this through a variety of methods, including leadership, collaboration, and engagement, and innovative solutions, so that we can keep our community healthy, with healthy people, healthy economy, and an environment for today and tomorrow. So when you think of CPZ, or what we often hear when people talk about CPZ, is that we are the people in the county who deal with poop. And it is not untrue that we deal with a lot of cow and human stuff, I will say. And it is definitely a badge and a duty we take very seriously and with pride, because we believe it helps us achieve our mission and the county's mission, and also achieve the county's comprehensive plan objectives. So we do take pride in helping our landowners deal with the poop in our community. But we are much more than just poop. We have the responsibility of administering 7 different county ordinances, and we do that through 3 different program areas of conservation, zoning and regulatory, and planning and land information services as well. Within conservation, so the next few slides are just a host of the services we provide. We implement our land and water resource management plan. We are in charge of manure storage and spreading for landowners within the county. We help administer those processes. We offer services related to farmland preservation, livestock licensing, managed grazing. We also have a lakes program that deals with shoreline restoration and mitigation, and several different conservation education programs where we're working with different groups across our county and across the state to cross-educate on best management practices for the land and farming and agriculture. If you own a home in a county-zoned town, if you live on a shoreland, or you have a private on-site wastewater treatment facility, you probably have, or treatment system, excuse me, on your property, you probably have been to our department to get one of these zoning permits. So we issue hundreds of these every year to landowners within our county to do different projects and achieve their dreams of building on their land the way they would like to, while also adhering to our ordinances. And we also have responsibility for then inspecting and making sure that these projects are staying in compliance through completion. Oops. But within zoning and regulatory, besides issuing permits, we work with rezones, which you see before the county board every month. We administer the private on-site wastewater treatment systems. We have over 21,000 systems within our county. We do shoreline zoning, farmland preservation zoning. We also get to deal with the non-metallic mining program and the metallic mining program within our county, and we provide support to the Environmental Resources Committee and the Board of Adjustment in administering the zoning within the county. If you've used our online mapping system for Marathon County, CPZ creates and maintains that system. And if you're like me and you have a little bit of trouble still using our online mapping system, I would encourage you to call our office. We have many staff who are very well trained in using this system and can show you how to get more information than you realized was probably even available on there, the tips and tricks for the layers. So I routinely call on them to help me navigate this mapping system. But it's a lot of great information and data. Within planning and land information, we also do county addressing for the county. We do the redistricting every 10 years. We provide land division and remonumentation services. We staff the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the region, and we help with the development of the county and town comprehensive plans and provide support to the infrastructure and public safety committees. And most recently, we've also taken on the real property listing and parcel mapping for the county. So that staff now lives within CPZ. But I think what I also wanted to speak to you about tonight is that I have only been with CPZ for the last year and a half, and so in that year and a half, I've had time to sit down with each of my staff to learn what it is they like about working for CPZ and Marathon County. And so when I did that, I started writing down the themes I saw, and I created this word graphic to illustrate what our CPZ staff really love about their job and working here at Marathon County. And it really started, the common themes really started with what we call HKR at CPZ. That's honest, kind, and respectful. So with everything we do, with all the interactions we have with our coworkers or with our landowners, we really go back to making sure we're always honest, kind, and respectful in those interactions. Because if we can't treat each other well, then we don't want to be doing this job. Beyond that, we also started, or I saw additional themes in terms of people who really wanted to be there to help others, solve problems, foster understanding. We have an echo. Sorry. Foster understanding and providing quality service. The people who work for CPZ are really passionate about good customer service. It's what we strive for every day. We have a lot of tough interactions with landowners. We're often dealing with people who don't necessarily want to be dealing with us or feel they're forced to deal with us. And so we have really collaborative discussions to try and understand what it is they're trying to do with their land and how we can assist them in achieving that desire, but also remaining in compliance with our ordinances. And then we also have a lot of people who are very passionate about the services we provide, that they love helping the land and, again, fostering that understanding. So I just really want everyone to understand that we do have a very passionate and dedicated staff at CPZ, and there are so many things we do for this county, and I would encourage anyone who wants to learn more to give us a call or come and visit with us, or actually spend a day in the field with us. We can set up a field day as well. So I'll take any questions.
Questions for Ms. Kimmons? No questions, so thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we have our Parks and Rec Director, Jamie Polly. Jamie, please.
All right. Thank you, Chair Gibbs and members of the County Board. Again, thank you for having me tonight. Like Lori said, I'm excited to tell you about the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department and how unique we are to the county as well as to really the country and how we operate our department. So as Chair Gibbs said, I'm Jamie Polly, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Director. I have been with the county for 4.5 years now. Was born and raised in the county and moved away to Minnesota and came back just for this job. So I'm excited to be back with my family. The Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department has a mission statement that is to adaptively manage our parks and forest lands for natural resource sustainability while providing healthy recreational opportunities and unique experiences, making our county a desirable place to live, work, and play. We try to put that in line with our Marathon County goals and vision and mission, as well as when we do our work each day. I know you can't see this organizational chart. I just wanted to show you kind of how we're set up. We have 44 full-time employees within our department. We work for, I'm going to talk about in a second how we work for the city and the county, but we also then hire 250 seasonal laborers every summer to help us with anywhere from park maintenance to lifeguarding to recreation programs. So we have a pretty large department, especially when it comes to summer. So a little bit about our department is that we are all Marathon County employees. We work for the county, but we have been operating 2 different park systems since 1924. There has been a joint director operating both City of Wca parks and the Marathon County parks for that time. Officially in 1974, the city turned over all staff, agreed to pay for half of equipment and all operations of city parks to the county. So we have operated for the last 50 years under that, where basically the city contracts us for all services. So our employees are budgeted, many of them 50-50, 50% county, 50% city. We do have a few that are 100% county, like our county foresters, and we have a couple that are 80 to 90% city, which would be our city foresters, kind of on that same realm. So we operate 17 county parks, ranging from just a half acre, which is basically the courthouse park here, up to 1,400 acres. We have 162 campsites of 3 campgrounds throughout the system, and we provide an opportunity for a lot of different recreational opportunities. We have 10 county forest units. We just got our newest one 2 or 3 years ago. It was donated of 80 acres from our Parks Foundation, so that gave us 10, and they range, from 269 to 9,000 acres for a total of about 30,000 acres we have in the county forest. And within the county forest, we manage the county forest per the state's forest law. So we do timber sales on them. We manage it for best management practices, but we also provide an abundance of recreation. So 9 Mile is our most unique county forest and the amenities that we offer, and the most used recreational-wise. So you saw me limping up here. I ran Ragnar this weekend and fell very hard in one of our timber sales, so gave our county forester a hard time on that. I didn't break anything, so that's good. We operate some specialized facilities. We have 2 ice arenas in Marathon Park. We have a shooting range. We have our sports complex that's sponsored by People's State Bank, Sunnyvale Softball Complex, and then Marathon Park is our biggest park of the county as far as parks go, and the staple of kind of the city of Wca. For the city of Wca side, we operate 34 parks. We have an urban forestry program, so we manage all of the city urban forest trees, about 25,000 trees. We have 4 urban forestry specialists and 1 city park forester that manages all those trees. We provide more recreation programs, and then our specialized facilities on the city side is Sylvan Tubing Hill and mountain biking area, our athletic park, so we work really closely with the woodchucks, 3 outdoor aquatic centers, our whitewater kayak park, the 400 block, a skate park, which we're rebuilding this next year, and then the abundance of boat launches. So different areas of responsibilities. This is kind of an overview of what we've done in the last 5 years, but we build parks, we maintain the parks, we provide and we do all of the irrigation system throughout both the city and the county parks. We have been in a process of replacing all playgrounds on the city and the county side over the last 5 years, something that was needed to be done. Almost all of our playgrounds were 20+ years old, so that's been something that's been supported. We've built and we maintain our athletic courts and fields. We've upgraded some of the fields at the sports complex. We worked with the Woodchucks on some major renovations to Athletic Park. We've added pickleball, and I'll get to how we add some of these facilities in a little bit. And then we have a lot of what we do. People, maybe talk about CPZ with poop. They talk about us with mowing. So they think if you work for the Parks Department, all you do is mow. Well, we do mow a lot, but we do have a lot of other facilities that we manage as well. And then for recreation programs, the 3 aquatic centers that we operate for the city. We also have a splash pad on the county, and we are entering into a contract with North Central Healthcare to use the warm water pool this year to offer some increased year-round programming for swimming lessons and water aerobics. I mentioned our urban forestry program. A big part of that is the emerald ash borer that we manage. Mainly that's on the city side at the moment. We haven't really found it too much in the county, in our county parks and our county forests, but it's something that we're watching. And then we are part of pretty much any event that goes on within the city and the county that utilizes our facilities. We are behind the scenes setting up all the electrical, the fencing, getting the grounds ready. So our Parks Department is pretty busy, especially in the summer. And then we have a sponsorship and naming rights program that we are working on. As we build out our park system, we look for grants. We've worked really well with the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin. We get sponsors, so we've had the People's State Bank sponsor. We just got a 5-year sponsor from Festival Foods to do the playground at the sports complex, so we're working on that. We have contracts, long-term contracts with Wca Woodchucks, as well as the Wca Cyclones. And they have put a lot of money and time into our facilities as well. And then we couldn't have what we have within our system without our partners of our different nonprofit groups, like the Central Wisconsin Off-Road Cycling Coalition. They've built all of our mountain biking trails, both at Sylvan, at 9 Mile, Big O Plain, and they've added the trails at Ringgold, which we do not manage. That's through solid waste, but it's all part of that system. Wca Nordic has a huge influence out at 9 Mile, and we'll be working on some projects coming forward. Wca Pickleball put together the $100,000 that upgraded the pickleball courts last year, so they're very invested in those pickleball courts. We work with disc golf, the Wca Kayak and Canoe Corporation, MC United Soccer, youth baseball, youth hockey, and a number of others that I may have forgotten. But these organizations not only provide funding to build out these facilities, but they also provide maintenance. CWAC, for instance, has a trail boss, they call, that maintains every park or system that they have, and then they let us know if there's anything major that goes on, but they do a lot of the maintenance, so which saves us, because like I said, we have 44 full-time staff and we cannot maintain really all that we had without these volunteers. So some of the needs and challenges of our department that we've had is staffing. We keep growing, we keep adding programs and facilities to our plate, and we have the same amount of staff that we've had for many years. So we do, like I said, hire 250 part-time seasonal staff that do help us. We rely on them a lot, but even that with wages has been hard to recruit. So the class comp study is something that the full-time staff is looking at, but we've looked at our part-time staff wages as well to try to get those positions filled. So if you know anybody who wants to work Sylvan in the winter, we do have positions available. Our levy limits and just the amount of what we can do. Our aging facilities, I put MPB up there, which is our multi-purpose buildings at Marathon Park. That's just one of our aging facilities. We've been able, through the budget process, over the last many years, we have a specific amount that we can use to do some smaller projects on our facilities, and we've really been able to get some of our aging facilities up to either ADA code or just new roofs on them that had been neglected for a long time. And those are smaller projects that don't go through the CIP project because they don't meet that threshold. So that's been very helpful. But I bring up MPB because you'll hear about it when we talk about our West Side Master Plan. Those are our ice arenas. Just the refrigeration system that we have in there that's operating those facilities was used from Eagle River in 1974, and we're keeping it working today. So as we go through, we've put a number of funds, a great amount of funds into that facility over the last couple of years, and it's getting to a point where we're going to have to address the long-term viability of that ice. Increasing demand for our parks. Over COVID, we saw a lot of use of our parks, increased maintenance needs, increased cleaning needs, the demand for campsites. It's been wonderful to see people out and about, but it's been a lot of work on our staff just to keep up with the number of people using our parks, so that's a good thing. Our rolling stock funding, which I believe is going to be talked about during the budget process, and then just a community collaboration on sports facilities. I think that's something I strive for as a director and as a representative of both the city and the county, is trying to work with Wca School District, DC Everest, the private organizations that want to do, private sports facilities, and trying to figure out how do we build facilities that will be used by the entire county, rather than having a specialized facility over here and a specialized facility over here, and we're all competing. I don't know that the Wassa region is big enough for those multiple facilities, so I really work hard to stay on top and to communicate with those different organizations so that we can, whether the county runs it, whether the school districts run it, it doesn't matter as long as we have these successful facilities that our community can use is a goal of ours. Some future projects that you'll see coming forward over the next couple of years we have a bike share program. We're looking at a kayak share program along the river. Snowmaking is a big discussion we've had with Nordic over the last 4 years, and it's going to continue as we work towards possibly doing that at 9 Mile. We're doing a trial season this year for fat tire biking. West Side Master Plan's coming forward. We need to do a master plan for Rib Falls Park, where we've done some mining, and now it's ready to be looked at for a master plan on how we're going to develop it. And then we're looking at our sustainability plan. That's something we've been working on for the last year, and we're going to continue to get that more narrowed down, providing more recreation programs, and just becoming a bigger partner in our community for events and facilities. And then there's a number of other ones on there as well. So just a little bit of our customers. We do have a Facebook page that we try to get our events out on. The city parks are mainly utilized by our city and county residents, but our campgrounds and our county parks are used by people of the state and of different states. We try to conduct customer surveys every time we have a recreation program, so we can get feedback and get constant feedback. And then we keep our outdoor recreation plans up to date. We have one for both the city and the county, as well as our county forests. And one thing I do want to mention is we have a really unique and really nice partnership with our sheriff's department. We had a recreation deputy within our department, and he retired. So one thing I worked with Sheriff Parks on is to implement our deputy program. So now we have 2 recreational deputies. Our department pays for one. Another one is paid for through grants by the state, and they're dedicated to our parks and forests, as well as they have their specialized use. One's on the dive team, one's on the bomb squad. And they do go out on patrol every now and then, but it's been a really successful and unique experience. We actually just presented with our deputies out in Arizona last week at the National Parks and Recreation Conference about our partnership between parks and law enforcement, and very well received, a lot of questions, so we're getting a lot of follow-up on people interested in our partnership with them. So that went well. And that's a quick overview of our department. Any questions?
Questions for Jamie?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Next, we have from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Wassa campus, Dr. Toms, the executive, campus executive. Dr. Toms, please.
Well, happy midweek eve, everyone. So glad, so glad. So I'm Ozella Toms, as you know, and I've been the campus executive. It'll be 3 months, October 5th, so coming on to my 90 days, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot. It's a great community, so just really enjoying my time here and everything I'm learning about the campus and the community. Get closer. So one of the things I've tasked myself with, is trying to really make sure our social media pages are up to date and going and active, so people know that we are here. And started a LinkedIn page. And so when I was getting ready to start the LinkedIn page, if you are on LinkedIn, please, like us. I started looking at different literature and materials from the past. And one thing I found was this logo, Great Beginning Start in Wca. So I was like, oh, this is really good. So I used it for our LinkedIn page. Not sure who coined this, but I thought it was great. So Marathon County, the UW Wca campus, our main purpose, then when it was created and now, is providing that associate level, right? And so preparing students to transfer to the four-year institutions. Some students transfer after that first year, some after the second year. But just kind of keep that in mind. And I've talked to a lot of alumni of the campus, and they have told me how much the campus prepared them for their four-year degrees. How many people here are alum of the campus? Either you did 1 year or 2 years, so. And alum are doing great things, and so I'm just amazed at what we've done here, So tonight I wanted to share a little bit about like who we serve as far as our high school students and also our matriculated students who are on the campus, but also kind of some things we do in the community. And I know so I'm kind of going to go through these kind of quickly. But looking at our high school population, one thing in regards to the high school students, many of the students who take our college courses have like topped out what they can take at their schools. And so now they're able to take these college level English courses, math courses, sometimes history courses. And so we're able to provide this service to our students. And so there are three different ways we tend to do this. I'm not gonna like go into all the nuts and bolts of everything, but we have the dual enrollment, we have the CISA projects, and also concurrent. And so one thing is special with the concurrent students, the actual high school teachers teach those courses. So the teachers are endorsed by the departments at our institution, and they're able to teach these courses in the high school, and these are college level courses. So not only are we providing a service for the students, but also the teachers are able to enrich themselves. So I think that's amazing. The other two ways we educate students in the high school are with our faculty. So either it's distance ed or the faculty teach in the high schools. So you look at these, you see these numbers here. Last fall, we had 144 students, current high school students taking our courses. This fall, 85. These numbers are alarming, just like, of course, our enrollment numbers, which kind of keep me up at night. But one thing we do know that we've lost some of the concurrent teachers. So some of these teachers have transferred to other schools and they're not teaching the courses, or they don't have room in their schedule to teach the courses. And so teachers have to have a certain certification, a certain degree to do this. And so we're definitely trying to work to get more courses in the high schools. And so just moving on to our students who are matriculated, our actual students who are fully enrolled in the institution. Again, I'll let you look at these numbers. Most of you have seen these from year to year. I'm sure Anna presented these numbers to you. But one thing I want to really kind of hit on is our first year students. And so when you look at the average ACT and GPA, these are where the students who are like our incoming freshmen. So fall 22, we had about 108 students who are new students to campus. So you look at the ACTs, our ACT scores, 20, 21, in that 20, 21 range. And so when you look at the national ACT average, it's 20.3. So, our students are right at that, that national average. Also looking at GPA, the national average is about 3.0. Male students tend to be around the 2.9, females like the 3.1. So our students are a little bit lower, but they are coming up. So again, just something to think about. Some other things about our students, our current profile of our students on our campus, 16.9% of our students are students of color. And with the largest category being our Southeast Asian students, and then next those who identify as mixed race and Hispanic, Latina. what I like about this, and we can kind of brag about on our campus, is that, you know, again, our students of color population is 16.9. Our main campus in Stevens Point is 11.9, and our Marshville campus is 9.9. So I'm like, so again, you know, something really that I think is great. Our average class size is about 15, and the majority of our students on our campus are taking 12 to 16 credits. So again, something to think about. And about 60% receive financial aid. So I just wanted to kind of give just a snapshot of our students. One thing that I think is important to note is the programs we offer. And I'm learning more and more about the programs we offer. So this presentation has helped me to really, you know, hone in on what do we offer on our campus. And I don't think everybody really know what we offer. So when you look at our associate degrees, you know, that Associate of Arts and Science, that, you know, students who know they want to transfer to Madison, they know they want to transfer to Platteville, they can transfer to any UW four-year school, our main campus. And then we also have those who want to focus on human services, the leadership and management, pre-engineering. So all those degrees are offered, the associates are offered solely with the Wca campus. When we get to our bachelor degrees, we have, again, you see these here, business admin, nursing, social work. We have a partnership with Platteville, and with that partnership, students are able to earn one of 3 different types of engineering degrees. And so they take the 2 years with us, and then they take the Platteville courses, but they stay in Wca, so those students stay here. And that's what with all of these, the students stay here, and that's something that's really important. And then with our master's degrees, what I think is amazing, a student can come to campus their freshman year and stay there and earn an MBA. Okay? But also we have students in our physician's assistant program. This is a partnership with Madison. So this is Madison faculty. They're using our space. They have about 12 students every year that comes in. This year, all the students that are in the program are from this area. They're all from this area. And so I was talking with some of our advisors, and sometimes students will come to the Wca campus, get their 2-year degree, transfer to the main campus, then come back for their PA because they know they can do that there. So again, I just want to kind of give you information about what we offer, because I don't think it's a clear picture of what we offer. Just some, you know, student activities, you know, a campus isn't a campus without some sports, right? So we do have a couple of varsity sports. We have a great partnership with NTC where we offer a lot of intramurals, and these are very competitive intramural sports. And so we've worked with NTC for a number of years to provide this programming for both of our students, and so that is great. And then of course we have our, you know, student government, you know, student activities boards. You know, we have a multicultural resource center. You know, typical things we have to offer students on a college campus. And some of our community engagement, and you know, everything is not on here because we do have our LIFE program that serves the students with intellectual disabilities who've graduated from high school, but they still have some programming to do and skills. So we have that program on our campus as well. I know many of you have eaten at Taste of Jamaica, and you know all these other programs. Many of you have worked with WHIPs, and so these are just some of the ways, some of the our programs we host on our campus. And I know one thing Lance have asked a couple of times, you know, what is the mission? Like, what is the mission of your campus? And very important question. And because we are one institution, 3 campuses, we are with the mission of our 4-year institution, of the 4-year campus. And so, you know, these are just the 4 premises of the mission. I could go into all these, but I know I don't have a lot of time. But again, just making sure that our finances are aligned with the institution's vision, but also the community needs, business needs. How do we serve our community the best? Also, making sure we provide educational opportunities for our students. And so one of my goals is to really increase how we serve those high school students, because we can serve them where they can earn 2 English courses, a history course, a math course before they graduate high school. And those courses transfer over. We're saving them money. We're gaining students. We're keeping our students in our community. Also, you know, making sure that students have a great experience. And we want to make sure we, you know, with academic excellence and inclusive excellence and all those things. And then again, really making sure we serve our community. How do we impact our community? Our campus needs to impact the community. And then the last slide is, you know, although we are part of an institution where we're 3 campuses, we still have our unique twist, right? Because we are here in Wca, and we have a rich history. 1933 is when our campus was instituted. And so when I think about our campus, I want it to be the community's campus, an educational hub. So a place for that traditional 18-year-old who know they want to get a 4-year degree. They want a liberal arts degree. So they're going to come to our campus, get those first couple years done, get a great foundation, and move on. For that non-traditional adult, someone who started their degree but never finished, we have plenty of online classes and evening classes for them to be able to do that. But also that adult who say, I want to advance in my job. I want to get my MBA, or I want to go back and get my PA degree. And then also, that continued education for our community members, our businesses, those leadership skills. We have a leadership program starting, I believe, next month. And so having those opportunities for our community. And then the last part is just being that gathering place. One thing I've been told over and over again, we used to have so many people on this campus. We used to have, swim lessons, which we work at, where's Parks and Recs? We work it up, the pool is almost together, Parks and Recs. But, having that people in the, pools, having all these plays and art events, athletic events, and is there so much we could be doing as a campus. And so really becoming that gathering place again for our community. And I know that was really quick, but I had a time limit. Any questions?
So questions for Dr. Tom? Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Great presentation. So we'll move on to the item number 8B8, and that's reports from any of the WCA conference attendees. Anybody wishes to provide a report? Supervisor Marash.
Thank you. I enjoyed my time at the conference, and I tried to do a brief overview of the different workshops that I went to. So the first one was combating the drug use epidemic, and John Nygren spoke regarding his daughter's experiences with drug addiction and efforts with AODA programs and subsequent incarcerations. He used the participants in our session by a show of attendees how many of us have been directly affected by the drug epidemic. He believes more effort should be made between counties to be more consistent regarding prosecution and prison time. He detailed several law enforcement measures that he worked to establish while working in the Assembly. Expand training opportunities for law enforcement. He also provided limited immunity from certain prosecutions for a person who seeks assistance from police or medical professionals for another individual who has OD'd on controlled substances, which was called the immunity law. And he created a system of immediate punishments for individuals who violate their parole or probation, parolees based on so-called SWIFT and certain laws in other states. Because prescription drugs lead to worse addictions, he outlined the importance of alternative pain management, such as chiropractic care, physical therapy, acupuncture, etc., as different ways to treat pain. And 80% of all drug addicts have underlying mental health issues, which could be childhood traumas, assault, and they use drugs to cover up the pain. The next is providing for our aging population. Travis Richardson, Hope Otto, and Michelle Goggin from Racine County explained how implementing data analysis procedures with their county health data has resulted in more precise resource allocation and allotment. Using their data analytics, they have determined that 6 to 10 calls to law enforcement concerns mental health, 12 to 20 calls are related to adult protective services, and roughly 40% of their calls in 30 days were called rescue runs. Having detailed data acquired through this analysis can assist law enforcement and behavioral health specialists in various ways, and a few recommendations were precision policing, where it shows where the patrols should be during specific times of the day. Adult protective services need significant increases in funding because the aging population is growing exponentially. For example, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. Realign services to have crisis specialists work directly with APS, sharing office space as well as deployment to service calls. CART teams working directly with APS so that skills increase regarding identifying specific needs. The next was Review and Reform Wisconsin Mental Health System. Sam Seefeld, Crisis Program Supervisor from La Crosse County, and Michael Lappin, Behavioral Health Division Administrator from Milwaukee County. Milwaukee County has recently been able to close its mental hospital due to how they've implemented new programs with the goal to serve their clients in the least restrictive environments as possible. Some of these programs include co-responder teams working with crisis mobile teams, certified peer specialists, and crisis clinics located on the north, south, east, and west sides of Milwaukee so that accessibility is easiest for clients. La Crosse County has implemented a co-response pilot program. This is a joint effort between La Crosse County Crisis Team and the City of La Crosse Police Department for crisis intervention training. This effort is to bring awareness to mental health with the goal to avoid hospitalization. The next was Public Health Lessons Learned and Looking Forward. Joan Thurer, Project Director, Wisconsin Public Health Forward, Susan Smith, Health Director for Wood County, and Mary Schwallenberg, County Board Supervisor for Calumet County. The Wisconsin Public Health Forward initiative is a joint effort to transform and modernize Wisconsin's local and tribal health departments. COVID-19 presented many challenges which allowed opportunities to move forward utilizing lessons learned over the past couple of years. Wisconsin is at the bottom in regards to funding for public health departments, being tied at 49th in the nation, and 50% of health officers are new in their role since 2021. This program focuses on population prevention and partnerships and looks for ways to improve public health through various means such as funding, data and technology, workforce, public laws and governance, partnerships, community engagement. Workforce is the single most important resource, and strategies to improve this resource are comprehensive training, flexible staffing models, and implementation of a public health workforce called a community of practice. They also discussed legal authority regarding monitoring state and national initiatives impacting public health. Some of the solutions they offered were provide trainings to health officers, legal counsel, administrators, and boards on public health and the law, develop a guidebook to support the development and implementation of communicable disease ordinances. The last is Youth and Care with Complex Needs. Jason Witt, Director of Human Services of La Crosse County, and Emily Coddington, Associate Director of the Wisconsin Association of Family and Children's Agencies. This presentation focused on the Families First Prevention Services Act. There are common case characteristics relative to youth requiring out-of-home placement, which include being victims of abuse and neglect, mental health issues, involvement with youth justice, and multiple out-of-home placements in the past. As of January 2022, 54 children were placed out of state, and these children usually go to Iowa, Utah, Tennessee, and Georgia. These out-of-state placements negatively impact children by making it difficult to stay connected to their families, complicates reintegration, and have less successful long-term outcomes. The counties are negatively impacted by increased service costs. It dilutes limited staffing and the long-term community effects. The goals are to provide better outcomes by allowing children to stay with their families because it reduces lifelong traumatic impacts, and out-of-home placements are tied to increased risk and criminal behavior. La Crosse County has implemented a program that has integrated social workers in various neighborhoods. After implementing this program, CPS referrals dropped 80% and police calls dropped 35% in troubled neighborhoods. These neighborhood houses are located in hot spots. Partnerships have been developed between the County Human Services and the school district to put social workers in the schools, where workers meet with students and teachers. Many churches are also working collaboratively with the county to help stabilize neighborhoods with an initiative called Safe Families for Children. There are several volunteer host homes that house children on a short-term basis, and family coaches are used to assist with the reunification process.
Thank you. And next we have Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I also had the opportunity to attend the WCA annual conference. I was able to attend four. The first one that I attended was County Board Committee Organizational Options. And basically, the moderators discussed how all 2 counties are governed by the same state statutes. They went over the committee structures of many of the counties, and a lot of these counties have restructured committee structure, and found that streamlining the governance process, committees more able to make decisions more easily and quickly, and how important the committees are with the decision process. Some of the committees, some of the moderators discussed that they looked at limiting meetings to 3 meetings per supervisor each month. And just a note with the restructuring of the committees, we did look at these when we were considering the size of the county board. The next workshop that I attended was updates on the status of Wisconsin transportation system. Wisconsin DOT Assistant Deputy Secretary led that discussion. He discussed the partnerships between state and the counties, bipartisan infrastructure law, and added was $467 million in new spending added for highways. The GAT is up 2% between 2022 and 2023. Also, he highlighted that the use of salt has been reduced by more than 76 million since started using brine. The third workshop that I attended was the WCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion seminar. This was led by County Chair Marcelia Nicholson and Brown County Executive Troy Steckenbach. They basically highlighted the success and the things they've learned from their visits to all 7 WCA districts this summer. The local one was in the village of Weston. They talked about not using buzzwords, and that equity makes the playing field the same for everyone, and also discussed what we could do to undo the harms from the past and how DEI concept can be tailored to fit each county. The last one I went to was on the latest in rural transportation. The moderator covered how counties play an essential role in rural transportation and the partnerships that they counties support all of the 1,244 townships. I didn't know we had 1,244 townships. There are 62,000 miles of town roads in Wisconsin. 1,000 of town roads are paved, are 65%, and 35% are gravel roads. Many townships spend up to 50% of their budget just on roads. And there are 4 revenue sources that help fund roads in townships. And of course, that's town property levy taxes, state aids, county aids, and federal aids. Many times the counties can assist the town with receiving these aids. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next, we have Supervisor Lemmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended 5, but I really want to just highlight one that I went to, and it was on housing and homelessness. Winnebago County is tackling their homelessness problem, which I think we also have one that we could tackle, and they've kind of a 4-pronged approach where they have an emergency care. It's a 23-hour you can be in it 23 hours. 3 pillars. While you're there, they do some job training, some mental health treatment, and then behavioral coaching. And that's really meant to be kind of acute care. one that I thought was really interesting is it's a transitional short term. They're trying to help curb some of the children that are homeless. So for families, they've started a tiny house village in Oshkosh. And it's interesting because they have partnered with a couple of not-for-profits, Oshkosh Kids Foundation and then the Wisconsin Partnership for Housing Development, who actually own the homes, and then these families are there. It's from 2 to 4 members can live in a home in a little neighborhood. There's a bigger structure where I would call it a social worker or somebody who kind of facilitates the neighborhood and helps build family skills so that they can eventually move into their own home. They have several community special housing that are for sober living or other things for adults with maybe disabilities, but the goal is to get all of these people into permanent housing, so they've partnered with Habitat for Humanity. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I think we're dealing with some homelessness that maybe we can partner with some of the municipalities to look at that. And then Washington County has what they call next generation housing initiatives, where they've got several neighborhoods that they've, I suppose, relaxed some of their zoning. They've partnered with different builders and other businesses in the community so that they can build some high-density single-family homes to get more of a younger group of people coming into the areas. Washington County is noticing that, I guess I'll call it the silver tsunami. I hate that term because it sounds offensive to me, so I apologize if anybody's offended. But there's a lot of baby boomers who are leaving, and they're not able to attract the millennials and the Gen Zs because they can't afford a starter home. Starter homes, when I was buying mine, was around 50, 60,000. Today they're 250,000, and the millennials just don't have that savings yet. They've got other debts, maybe for school. School didn't cost that much when I was going. So at any rate, it's a way to partner with your, the economic development, different places in the community that could help work to get some of these neighborhoods built, like what they did in Washington County. I think Christy would like the net new construction that might happen. So it's a good thing. I think it merits some study and some talking. I did look for the video. I can't find it on any of the materials, but the slides are there, so it's good.
Okay, thank you. And next we have Supervisor Cavalli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the ones that, I attended several that Supervisor Marash attended as well, so she gave a great presentation on the ones that I attended as well. One that I haven't heard yet that I attended was Strategies for Addressing Wicked Problems in a Wicked World, presented by Dean Dietrich and Eric Giordano, I believe is how you say it. A very good presentation locally on, there were some Marathon County problems that they talked about as well. And they're saying that government can handle most public problems, right? Problems that require technical or expert-driven solutions are a little tougher. Problems that can be addressed through advocacy, through council, board debate, partisan politics, interest advocacy groups, and activists. And they talked about some characteristics. What is a wicked problem? A wicked problem is there's no definitive formulation for it. The no stopping rule or no completion signal. Solutions are not true or false, only good or bad. Multiple potential solutions or approaches. There's no way to test solutions. Every trial counts. Problems are essentially unique. They can be described as a symptom of other problems. How a problem is named and framed determines its possible solutions. Planners have no right to be wrong. They are responsible for consequences. Some examples are land and water use, climate change, social climate and diversity issues, long-term energy strategy, public safety issues, mass incarceration, alcohol, drug misuse and addiction, mental health challenges, and health equity. So they did talk about some of the solutions, about deliberative engagement, getting folks engaged in the conversations about the solutions. They talked about the Sam Kainer's dynamics of group decision making, going from divergent thinking with a new topic or familiar opinions or diverse perspectives into the grown zone, which I like that wording, was the grown zone. That's the pain point, right? Into convergent thinking, which everybody's on board with it, and you come to a decision point. And sometimes that's difficult. I asked the question about what is paralysis by analysis, because he talked about paralysis by analysis. So if you overanalyze something, you get paralyzed into this conundrum of not being able to solve the problem. So he talked a little bit about staying away from overanalyzing something and getting caught into not being able to solve the problem. So it was a good presentation on some of the wicked problems that we might see as a board. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Supervisor Arstead.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I too went to a lot of the same classes that Stacy went to, as well as Ron, and Stacy did amazing in her presentation. So I will just talk about one of the classes that I went that hasn't been discussed, and it was moving away from blame, creating a safety culture in county government. And what it stemmed from was there can be high-profile outrage for different things that happen in a community. You look at some of the high-profile things that we see on the news with different things like Kenosha, the shooting in Kenosha, and there were some other ones. But a lot of the, even with healthcare, if something isn't followed, if protocol isn't followed, and something happens, somebody dies, the initial reaction is to fire that person because they didn't follow protocol. But there are 3 transitions that they suggested: moving the blame to accountability. So the person that did the wrongdoing needs to be accountable. The best thing to do is to apply quick fixes to understanding underlying features and making the meaningful changes and addressing the real problems. So it's identifying what the problems are and not just saying, well, this person didn't follow protocol. Why didn't this person follow protocol? Are there other things within that group of people that help others? Are they having the same issue? Are they going outside of protocol? Employees are a problem to control, a solution to harness. So what they're trying to do is harness what a solution would be to control whatever the outcome is. So the biggest thing is integration into everyday operations, changing your behavior and moving into working through those problems and those issues so that there is sustainability within the group of people working and retention. Because the last thing you want to do is just fire somebody for making a mistake. We all make mistakes, but we got to figure out where the mistake stemmed from, and if it was a protocol that wasn't followed, why wasn't it followed? So it's just kind of going through and figuring out instead of creating a blame for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Supervisor Robinson.
I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to go. And one of the big benefits that I always derive from going to the meetings is the discussions with vendors. And we had an opportunity, Administrator Leonard and I talked to the person from the surplus property, and I know Deputy Administrator Holman has talked about using them to advertise our tax delinquent properties for sale, and they've got a database of 135,000 parties that they can help us market, so hopefully we can move some of our surplus properties quicker through working with them at no fee, which is even better. But there were opportunities to meet with the charter people to talk about their broadband plans in Marathon County. Celeste Flynn, who we deal with on a regular basis, and I met for the first time post-COVID, and there were a number of other vendors there that had good information relative to the new bipartisan infrastructure law and the potential for 30% tax credits for local governments installing solar panels or wind energy and others, but that was very helpful. And I attended a number of workshops that were covered already, but one was PFAS. Melissa Johnson, our own solid waste manager, was a presenter and pointed out the history of PFAS. They're very effective in separating water and oil, and they're found in fast food containers, cookware, dental floss, all-day mascara, carpeting, shaving cream, and they're carcinogenic and have other health problems. To date, the way that we've been dealing with them is through treatment versus destruction, so we just move it from one media to another, whether it's through reverse osmosis, ion exchange, granular activated carbon, and others, but there's a lot of interesting technologies on the way. But there are issues facing county because it's in water, wastewater, biosolids. 2 counties in the state run incinerators where it's discharged into the atmosphere, and it will be an issue that we pay attention to in the future. I also attended a seminar on inflation county budgets and levy limits, and the administrators from Sheboygan and Barron County were there along with representatives from Forward Analytics, and they talked about the cause of inflation, some of the other ones, but they also pointed out that there will be a 130,000 worker shortage in Wisconsin in the next 10 years due to the demographics, and that will create some pressures on employment and other opportunities. And each of the counties talked about their budgeting priorities, but I was intrigued by the budget process used by Sheboygan County. In June, they get together and they fix the goals and the changes for the and set targets for the departments in developing the budget, and they use that to drive their budget discussions early on, and the county board is involved in it. They also, over the past few years, have done a number of things to consolidate departments from 26 to 19, combining registered deeds and registered probate with clerk court, privatized 2 of their 3 nursing homes, and did a number of other things to drive down their cost. And there were a number of other interesting partnerships. But one of the things that they do is they have a monthly meeting with inviting the county board, department heads, and all of the area legislators to talk about issues, and that's been helpful in articulating a county policy. I know we do that on a quarterly basis with other counties, but they did it on a single county basis. Then I also attended a seminar on broadband with Rory Slakowski, who's the new PSE program manager for the broadband office, and he went through some of the new funding opportunities, including the broadband equity and access deployment grant, where there'll be $42.5 billion available nationwide, and about $1 billion of that will come to Wisconsin. We talked about digital equity and the state developing a plan to deal with that. We also talked about the affordable connectivity program, under which residents 200% of the federal poverty level or lower can qualify for a $300 or $30 a month subsidy on their internet, as well as a one-time credit of $100 for a device that will expand it. So there are lots of opportunities, and they also talked a little bit about the FCC updating the mapping. Currently, if one resident in a census tract is covered, the entire census tract is considered to be covered for broadband purposes. FCC is in the process of rolling out a new process where they're creating what's known as a fabric, but the fabric will have every building premise structure on it, and whether it's served or not. Counties will have the opportunity to comment on it. That discussion led to us bringing that issue up yesterday at the Broadband Task Force. meeting, but there are lots of opportunities, and PSC is working on local planning toolkits for communities to address broadband underserved and unserved areas.
Thank you. And we have next Supervisor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two comments on two of the sessions that I had attended. One, I did go to the homelessness and housing one that Supervisor Lemmer was in. And where that really good ideas, I think, in assisting people with those issues, both from the homelessness and the housing side in both of those counties. I think it's interesting, or something to point out is, Winnebago County had a $10.4 million grant. Washington County used $10 million of ARPA money. And so the issue is, when the money runs out, what do you do? And they had no answers for that. So while we really can look at that, how can you help people and assist? I think the most important thing is the partnerships that were generated with these other organizations. Because you won't be able to, as a government institution, really fund those initiatives that way. The second thing was the inflation and the county levy and budgets that Supervisor Robinson had gone to as well. Barron County and Sheboygan County. I take away, and John did a very good job of talking about the yearly budget schedule that they have in place, where not only some supervisors on one committee have insight, every supervisor in the county has input into that process. And I think when we come up to November, one of the challenges in October, November, one of the challenges we always have with our budget is trying to understand where all the money is if you're not on this committee, and if you're not going to take a significant amount of time, of your own time outside of that committee, to do research. So the connection that they did in cost-saving initiatives, and as you had mentioned, the different reductions in services that they had done, not that they're getting rid of the service, but that they're finding ways to deliver the service just more cost efficiently. So I appreciate the opportunity to go. I will say, and I'm a little surprised no one really said this, one of the greatest things I take away from it is being able to sit around with people and interact, to have dinner, to watch a Packer game, to talk about people and their families and their interests. Had very good conversations. Conversation with Supervisor Hart about the Center for Visual Arts, and talking about music with Supervisor Lemmer and with Supervisor Arstad and her musical talents. Because I think when you have those discussions outside of this room, you see people for who they are, their humanity, and it helps you build trust and respect. So I would always encourage people to attend such things. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals attending the WCA conference? I also had the opportunity, and I want to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to attend the WCA conference. I serve as the board chair. I also serve as your elector and voting delegate to the WCA business meeting, where the 72 board chairs from the 71 board chairs from the 71 counties that are members of WCA vote on the resolutions that are forwarded to WCA to set the platform for the advocacy that WCA advocates on behalf of all 71 counties that are members. So the board, during the business meeting, the board approved those resolutions that were forwarded and recommended for approval by the Resolutions Committee and the committees. They also, one of the things that the business meeting also does is sets the dues structure for the WCA dues for all the 72 counties. And I'm pleasantly allowed to announce that for the 20th consecutive year, WCA has not raised its dues. Now, some counties may have seen a small dues increase, but it was because of their population density changing the structure where they were. So in other words, their population increased, and it may have moved a small amount into an incremental change. But from a dues structure, the counties haven't raised the dues. The Wisconsin Counties Association has not raised its dues, it has not needed to. It has used a business model that and dues from and revenues from other sources to fund operations. And so with that, I also attended multiple sessions, but most of those sessions have all been reported on. And so again, I just thank you for the opportunity. Anything else? Any others wishing to report on their the WCA conference? If not, we will move on to standing committee chairs and/or designees. Any announcements? Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to update the county board relative to the budget schedule. The budget, the administrator will be presenting the budget to the committee on October 12th, and the committee will be acting on that budget on October 17th, presenting it to the county board on October 20th at their meeting, and on November 3rd, we will have the public informational meeting with final adoption coming on November 10th. We'll be talking about the KIP a little bit later, and during the meeting today, we had a Representative Melania from McGrath give a presentation on the class compensation study, and because she was in town, I'll turn it over to the administrator to provide an overview of where we are and her role.
Sure. Thank you, Committee Chair Robinson, and as Supervisor Robinson referenced, Melina Halverson-Mays from McGrath is here. We wanted to be able to have you all put a face with a name or a face with a WebEx if you've been on meetings where you've heard her in the past. So if Melina she can come on up and say hello. But just really quickly, I'll be brief. I know you still have a fair amount of your meeting yet, but the class compensation study, please look for a link. I will send you a link to the recording, the YouTube recording from the meeting that was held at HR Finance earlier today. I think it was a great meeting, very informational. So watch for that, because the schedule for the class compensation adoption that was put together by the HR Finance and Property Committee, because this is tied to the budget as well, calls for this body, the full board, to take action in October at your October 25th meeting. So the reason, apart from having Melina here today to at least say hello and introduce herself, also to send you that link. But if you have any questions or concerns about anything you do see in the presentation and within the presentation and packet materials, there is the proposed schedule that, as it exists right now, and there may be some tweaks to that, but as it exists right now, please reach out to Committee Chair Robinson to bring those to his attention. He can then interface with our staff or Melina directly to address that. The one other piece that I do reference in that presentation is certainly the board and the HR Finance and Property Committee specifically, and perhaps the Executive Committee. There's been a lot of work done on every position within the county save one, and that's mine, because it's your job to review where that my position falls within the class compensation study. So please reach out to Supervisor Robinson if you have those questions and concerns. But otherwise, if I could indulge for just a moment, allow Melina to come up and say hello and tell you just a little bit about herself.
Absolutely, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Melina Halverson-Mays. I am a senior consultant with McGrath Human Resources Group. We are a public sector consulting firm that predominantly, on the human resources side anyway, works with compensation and benefits. We also do HR audits, policy development, and some executive recruitment. The other side of our company also serves public safety, police, fire, EMS, and dispatching. I am part of that organization as well, but the majority of my time is on the HR side. I actually live just down the road from you in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And so even though I have been with the firm now for about 8 years working on compensation and benefits, my background is at the county level, and I spent about 15 years there, and so being able to be part of county projects is near and dear to my heart, as much as just being back in Wisconsin. Our firm serves about 400 clients in about 40 different states, and so I'm not going to spend too much more time on myself, because that's not necessarily the important piece, but I do want to just add the report that's going to be provided to you with the links that are going to be coming out. What I would consider this, I would consider this to be one of the most important pieces of legislation that your county can adopt, and I would say it's second to your annual budget. And that is because for the past hour or so, we have been talking and gaining reports from your departments with all of the programs and services that are provided to them, along with opportunities from the WCA on services, programs, and operations. But without your human capital, without your employees, you're not going to be able to provide those services. And so this compensation study, the outcome of it that is outlined, is intended to really put the county in a position where you will be able to foster retention and recruitment so that you can provide those programs and services and operations to your constituents. So I do encourage you to please look at the report, the PowerPoint presentation, and the video. And before I started my presentation this afternoon, your Employee Resources Director, she provided some statistics, I would call them HR metrics, on the state of Marathon County right now, and that gives you a really good preface of where you are at as an employer at this point. I won't take up any more of your time. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you. And Supervisor Robinson, did you request to speak again, or?
I was just going to cover the fact that Molly had prepared the summary of where we are in the county, and we'll make sure that whatever link has it includes her information.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other announcements from committee chairs or designees? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the balance of the agenda. We'll start with the consent agenda, item C10 through item C14A. Motion by Supervisor Zhang and seconded by Vice Chair McEwen. Any discussion on the item consent agenda, items C10 through items C14A? Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had to move, move in between apps. I would like to address item C13C due to a fellow county board supervisor contacting me requesting some information related to it. As some of you will note, the intended use of the rezone property, once this rezone has to do with a shooting range. A couple things to note, they were concerned with some environmental impacts, whether or not they were addressed. Some background information for everybody in regards to the way our zoning hearings work is that if there's any environmental agency that has any concerns about the proposed rezone, they are able to submit comments during that time if there are any concerns. There were some concerns noted in the supervisor's email related to lead contamination. It's my understanding, at least from what I've heard to staff, that a lot of the casings are related to brass. So with lead, that's something that's regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, if there is any, and it's something that the Conservation Planning and Zoning Department would not be involved in. Last thing I'll note, even though it has nothing to do with the proposed rezone in front of you, well, it's somewhat related, but it is not a condition upon which you can approve this proposed rezone. The wetland delineation permits for this property were approved by the Department of Natural Resources. So there are no concerns from the agencies at this time as far as any potential contamination. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion on any of the agenda items in the consent agenda, items C10 through items C14A? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Supervisor Opal, can you please vote?
Working on it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will move on to resolutions from the Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee. Item D15, approval of the 2022 budget transfers, budget transfers for Marathon County Department of Appropriation. Resolution 56-22. Motion by Supervisor Leahy and second by Supervisor Zhang. Any discussion? This does require a 2/3 majority vote. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried but is not unanimous. And we will move on to item D16, a resolution to approve the 2023 Capital Improvement Plan Project, Resolution 57-22. Motion by Supervisor Vensky, second by Supervisor Zhang. Any discussion? Supervisor Robinson.
Deputy Administrator Holman has moved to the front to give an overview of what we did, but earlier today, the Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee did act upon it, and we recommended the KIP to use subject to some conditions. We were concerned over the amount of borrowing that has been done in the past in the debt service, and felt as if this was not a year for us to go to the market because of changing economic conditions, and therefore are not recommending any borrowing associated with the KIP at this time. We also felt that as if the capital budget should not include any new ARPA funding, understanding that the board earlier had approved some of the money for the highway projects. We're evaluating those in the context of whether the ARPA is the best use of funds given the general transportation aid situation, whether or not those would be eligible costs for general transportation 6-year averages or not, and we'll be doing that. But as a result, the number of projects will be deferred or modified, and I'll turn it over, or Chris, if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Robinson. So really just wanted to remind everybody that as the process goes, and I try to simplify it a bit by providing you each one of these, we're really just talking about the project list tonight. So the funding that will get allocated will work through the budget process and come back next month and throughout the budget process. So the discussion earlier today, the committee approved the list as presented with the guidance that was just outlined. And so with that guidance and anything else that this body would provide is how we would shape sort of allocating the funding that's available throughout the list. And so I'm here to answer questions. Facilities staff is in the back if you have any questions as well. But really it's just to focus on the overall list that's in front of you. You'll see it again. There'll be funding allocated to each of the projects based on the guidance, and you can still have the opportunity to kind of deliberate on all of those as the process moves forward.
Any discussion? Supervisor Baker.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I have a question on the Arctic Wolf Security Incident Event Monitor. So as I read through that one, I see that it's basically software as a service. It's been converted from 1 year to 4 years. Why is that appropriate to put in the CIP as opposed to putting that in the regular budget? Thank you.
Well, partially that's tied to how our relationship is with CCITC's budget. And so as their projects come forward, along with the form you looked at, the other parties to CCITC have a funding allocation as well over those 4 years. To your other question, I think that's still something that people are looking at in terms of how to tackle the shift from, say, a hard server somewhere to something that's more in the cloud. And so I think, generally speaking, the way people view the software as a service piece moving away from hardware is why you start seeing it showing up in a capital improvement plan, but also the scope of the project and the costs. And so I think those three things are my understanding, and Jerry, I'm not sure if I'm missing anything. are the reasons why it's landing here. And so it's lumped into the technology funding per our agreement with CCITC.
If I can add one thing to your question, Supervisor Baker, and Chris alluded to this, it's really a transparency piece. Marathon County has historically listed items on your capital improvement document, and the draft you have is a good example, for things that aren't necessarily funded with capital improvement dollars, to be very transparent with large purchases. And one of the reasons, at least from my perspective as your administrator, it's not overly helpful to put large purchases within a department budget that aren't recurring, is because then you see kind of the yo-yo effect of department budgets, and it doesn't give you as policymakers a good handle on what is necessary within a departmental budget. I think to Chris's point, and you alluded to this as well, the movement from that hard server to that software as a service world really is causing all local governments to have to look at, first and foremost, the question on a lot of counties' minds is, can you borrow for this? Because for those of you at Wisconsin Counties Association, everyone, one of the big recurring pieces were the levy limits, the way they are, people are looking for every opportunity to essentially borrow for things that you might otherwise think are operational in nature. So there's a number of pieces to that, but I think the important one, at least for me, that's guided how we put together this document is transparency. If we are purchasing a large piece of equipment, regardless of whether it uses capital funds, I think it's a good thing to specifically call it out. I hope that answers your question.
It partly does, but also one of the things you mentioned was that if the budget changes from year to year, that we don't want it to, we want to put it in the CIP so it doesn't stagger the budget. But in this case, it looks like it's the same for a 4-year period. So I don't think that quite applies in this case.
That's largely true. I mean, I think a better example of something you wouldn't put in the budget, put in the Department of Budget, Lori Miskimmins is in the back, as is Jamie. We have a lot of plans. Plans come kind of in a cyclical nature, but they're not every year. A comprehensive plan or a class compensation study, when those things come up, we did put that in the administration budget last year, and it did cause the administration budget to look like it was inflated. It's a better thing to put those in this document, and in fact, plans is one thing that Chris and I are talking about, how to really specifically create a process where we're very transparent in what plans are being moved forward in the budget. But I think the larger question, and one of the questions we had at CCIT about Arctic Wolf is, there are alternative methodologies to delivering the ultimate end results that piece of software is aiming to do. And we might change the way we deliver that. And if we do move to a direct staffing model, that would, to your point, live in the department budget, but we're not there yet. It's a software purchase.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just clarify something for me. So we are approving this list of items without the cost, without the actual funding for it, correct? How does that work when, say, the CWA terminal area master plan study is going to cost $400,000, but we're not really approving the money for it? I mean, the cost is, if someone is going to tell us that study is $400,000, where in essence, by approving this, we're approving the money for $400,000. Explain to me how that works.
We'll have another opportunity when we deal with the budget itself. This document will be brought back, and each of the funding sources will be identified. So in the CWA's case, the $400,000 for the project that you're talking about will be identified as coming from within CWA's funds and not the CIP funds. So there's various funding sources that will fund various projects that are on this list. They have not been identified as they're showing currently, and that will be the additional opportunity for this body to review each of those funding sources for each of those identified projects.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think also to answer your question, I think this is also a symptom of sort of bridging from old to new. So historically, there were 2 or 3 meetings about CIP before you were actually looking at assigning actual funding to a project. I think if we can dovetail this planning effort with the budget cycle in a way that we know what the post-audit funding is for CIP, then the staff recommendation that we can bring forward would include the funding at the same time. And so it would minimize the number of meetings you would actually have to discuss or to identify or look at projects. And the funding is there also for context, so that if, when you get to the point of assigning funding next month, you wanted to move something around or had a question, you'd know kind of the cards you're dealing with, and you could compare them and see what you could cover if you wanted to move things around. But ultimately, it's my vision that in 2024, we can have the process be at a point where you can say, okay, we'll hold this meeting at a point when we know what that number is, so that then you get a recommendation of the project, the associated funding, and then the conversation is not just about a list per se, but about actually moving things around based on where you want to go with the plan.
We have next Supervisor Sadowski.
Thank you. I just got a question on restroom vault toilet replacement at the DC Everest Park. Is a DC Everest Park, is that considered a county park?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
We have Supervisor Shafinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to be clear that I understand the process here. Right now, what we're looking at is voting on a wish list that we hope to be able to do. We don't have all the details nailed down yet. We don't have all the facts and figures in concrete. And given the world we live in, that may change. So we fast forward to our next meeting, we now are confronted with a situation where we don't have the dollars that we thought we were going to. Are we still able to remove items from this list at that point in time?
The short answer is yes, and I'd also just like to add that at the Thursday meeting, I referenced a spreadsheet where I had the priority tiers. So that's feeding into our conversation on our side as well in terms of what we would bring to HR Finance next month and you eventually as a board to say, here's the mandatory compliance, we're going to fund those. Here's the obligations we have for recurring funds. Here's the end-of-life projects that we, in our opinion, should fund. And maybe if there was an outline project there, we would say, well, we don't know what you want to do about it, but here are some funding mechanisms that we can entertain, or you could shift projects around. That can all happen. I think, in a perfect world, if we had all the money for all the projects but 3, we'd really be discussing sort of which are the 3 of the new projects that are the lowest priority on the list that you want to not fund. But I think that our emphasis is on ensuring that we're taking care of everything that should be taken care of, just on a, for lack of a better word, sort of logical sense in terms of end of life and compliance issues. So, but yeah, to your point, whatever recommendation comes forward from committee to this board, you will still be able to move around based on whatever the reality is at that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Supervisor Robinson.
Let me just piggyback on Deputy Administrator Holman's comments. The primary purpose of our action today is to create the list on which they will develop the budget. It isn't, it is our intent to explore these projects. They're going to then look at the reality of where is the fund balance from 2 years ago that funds the KIP program. What is the balance that we have? What are recurring projects that are funded outside of the KIP process that we would have, like the bituminous and other things? But it just gives them a little bit more guidance on which to develop the budget. Ultimately, every project will need to be approved as part of the budget, and you will have that opportunity in the upcoming meetings.
Supervisor Baker.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. During the HR Finance meeting this afternoon, and as reflected on the sheet, the decision was made to not use any new ARPA funding for the CIP. And I was wondering what the rationale was for that, and also what we would expect then to use that ARPA funding for? Thank you.
Based on my understanding of the comments at the committee, I would say that there wasn't necessarily an idea in mind for where the funding would go if you weren't using it here. I think the intention behind the comments and the discussion was to say that this board's already allocated funding towards capital improvements, specifically a lot of that towards the highway projects, that we'll see which ones of those get funded, but not to include the borrowing, but also to say if we get, say all the funding met the end of life projects and then you had only new projects left, that you wouldn't use new ARPA funding and try to introduce more funding through ARPA for those types of projects. But existing ARPA funding would still be usable, fungible.
Any other questions?
I think I still have the floor. Thank you.
Supervisor Baker?
I was actually looking for Chairman, or for Supervisor Robinson to answer that question.
Supervisor Robinson?
Thank you. I think the concern is that we've got until December 31st of 2024 in which to earmark the dollars until 26 to spend it. I think that we've got another round of requests coming up on October 1st. I think in the overall scheme, we didn't want to spend, I was one of the ones advocating for this. We didn't want to necessarily commit it. We know that there are some issues relative to lost revenues at North Central Healthcare that we have not yet addressed. And we know that there are some other significant issues facing us that would be more, in my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, more appropriate to use those ARPA funds for that are consistent with losses associated with the pandemic.
Understanding that we've already allocated, this board has already allocated almost 20-some million of the 26 million, so there's remaining only unallocated right now, roughly $6 million.
Thank you. I understood that, but I also understood that there was some question about the highway allocations. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Then we will proceed to vote on the motion to approve the capital improvement plan. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. C. Next, we have item E, 17, announcements and/or requests. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not with us tonight is a very critical part of our governance, and that is Peter Weinchik. And for those of you that know him, he's been a reporter that has covered this county for over 40 years, and he will be retiring on October 12th. And one of the critical things for a free society and a democracy to thrive is an open and active free press. And no one has done it better and covered this body better than Peter Weinchik over his years of service. And we'd just like to wish him well in his retirement.
Thank you. Any other announcements and/or requests? The clerk has, we need signatures from HR Finance and Infrastructure. Any other announcements? Seeing none, I will take the infamous motion to adjourn. Who so wishes? Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and seconded by Supervisor Hart. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.